Welcome back to the Rundown. Well, the battle here is intensifying over the Israeli government's proposed overhaul of the country's judicial system. The committee representing public sector attorneys has reportedly declared a work dispute and is threatening a strike if the reforms are implemented. Over 70 prominent American law professors, including Alan Dershowitz, have issued a public letter saying they are, quote, deeply worried that the speed and scale of the reforms will seriously weaken the independence of the judiciary. On the other side, religious Zionist Party lawmaker Simcha Rothman, at today's meeting of the Knesset Constitution, Law and Justice Committee, which he chairs, slammed Chief Justice Esther Chayut for proposing the reforms be frozen and referred to mediation, with Rothman saying she is trying to stifle debate over the courts.
I think that if I were to say that I'm stopping the reform as long as the court stops its deliberations, does not reject laws or appointments, does not discuss policy issues, freezing the situation until we speak, they would rightly say that I'm interfering with judicial independence and harming the separation of powers. The attempt to interfere in legislative proceedings in the Knesset by the President of the Supreme Court is a serious violation of the separation of powers. The entire Knesset, coalition and opposition should have said that this is an act that will not be done.
And Prime Minister Netanyahu, in an interview with CNN's Jake Tapper, defended the reforms but did indicate a possible willingness to compromise on the details.
I think they should look at the provisions of this reform. Britain doesn't have a constitution like us, and the court cannot strike down any decision of the British Parliament.
But it means you and your party right now could override anything.
No, wait.
That the Supreme Court rules.
There are checks and balances on that proposal.
But a simple majority vote in the Knesset.
Well, there's something that could be discussed, but let me tell you, and it will be, if the other side deigns to.
You are willing to slow it down? You're willing to.
I'm willing to hear counteroffers. I call for them.
And joining us for more is Ran Ben Yoshafat, political commentator and legal expert. Bar Yoshafat speaking to us from Jerusalem. And Yehuda Schaefer, former deputy state attorney at the Israel's Justice Ministry in Tel Aviv. And gentlemen, we've heard from you on this program, your disagreements on these reforms. But let's start by seeing if there's any room for compromise. Yehuda, the Prime Minister says he wants counter-proposal. Do you have one on the proposal for allowing 61 lawmakers to override a Supreme Court ruling?
Well, first of all, I think on each of the four topics, we can maybe reach some kind of common ground. But what scares me the most is an interview that the Justice Minister gave just a few days ago, where he said this was just the first floor of a 4-story building, and that there's many more legislative initiatives to come, I'm guessing, regarding that might affect the Netanyahu trial, etc.
Okay, but let's talk about, do you have a counteroffer on that proposal?
I will, but I think the first counteroffer is to put on the table all the 4 stories of the building, which the Minister of Justice has talked about in this interview. We want transparency. We want to see all the legislative amendments that will be suggested. Now, answering your question, I think if this is part of a deal where there is a basic law legislation being enacted, recognizing the ability for judicial review. The Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke about England not having judicial review, but that's not accurate, of course, because they.
Okay, but Yehuda, I'm asking you to put a counteroffer. How many would you accept? Any number of Knesset members overriding a?
Oh, so first of all, it has to be part of legislating a basic law, which has all the elements in it. Secondly, it has to be a number which is, if we are demanding the full number of the justices to override the law, then we need a substantial majority on the other side as well, on the Knesset side, which I would say 70 or so. And the third thing, which is most important, we're copying this from Canada. In Canada, not all civil rights can be overridden. For instance, equality cannot be. So we need to identify a few human rights which cannot be overridden in any case. Rights are not given by the parliament. They cannot be taken by the parliament.
All right, so let me go to Ran. Ran, do you have a number? You were saying 70 and maybe some kind of basic Bill of Rights for Israeli citizens.
So first of all, I just want to say it's kind of funny to say that the main concern is what is not on the table. This is what is on the table, and Minister Yariv Levin, also MK Simcha Rothman, they said this is the starting point. I think the proposition is fine, but I'm open to hear 63, 65, 70, as long as the other side will feel that they're being included. I mean, I'm not the one who's deciding or voting on it, but I think I'm willing to compromise because I want something that's constitutional to be with the widest consent as possible. It's just a little bit strange to me because until now, all we've heard is this is the end of democracy. So we can go into details. Yes, I think that in every single one of the proposals, there is room for leverage. That's literally what Yariv Levin said and literally what MK Simcha Rothman said. Let's talk about it. Now, what is interesting is that the same proposal as is was proposed just in the previous government. I guess at that time it wasn't the end of democracy. So I think sometimes people here are worried. I'm not saying that they're not allowed to be worried. It's great that it's normal, but maybe some of their concerns are not really about what is actually being proposed.
All right.
So if the issue is if it's not 61, it's supposed to be 63, 65, come to the table in the parliament and say what you think. It's open discussions. Let's solve it and let's find what is best for everyone. Because people need to remember, you can wake up tomorrow in the coalition or the opposition, and you want to have a fair system for both sides.
Okay, so Rand saying that both of you agree there's some room for compromise. Now it's an argument about where to make that compromise. Can it be done solely within the confines of the Knesset Yehuda, or as some suggest, there has to be some kind of other mediation?
Well, it can be either way. It could be done by the president. It can be done. It should be done in parliament. It should be done in parliament, not in the committee, because the discussions there are very formalistic and they don't seem to be very constructive. But politicians know how to wheel and deal, and they should be doing this. The main issue is not 65 or 70, and is not the reasonableness. The main issue, which cannot be compromised, is the attempt to politicize the judiciary in Israel. And that is the main issue here. So I think at the end of the day, it will all depend on who the judges are. And I believe we have an excellent system. We have excellent judges. Where they used to be considered 20 years ago too much leaning to the liberal side. In recent years, the last 5-6 appointments have been very conservative, and it's
you're actually
I don't object to continuing this.
I just want to clarify for your viewers' objection to making on the committee that picks the judges, it being a majority of lawmakers, coalition.
I would object to any change whatsoever. The only change that was agreed already, which can be reinforced, is to have some kind of public hearing. That was agreed already by the previous Minister of Justice, and that I don't like that too much because I don't see I don't think it's added value in the U.S. or anywhere else. But I understand where it's coming from, and if that's what be needed to identify more conservative judges and more judges that will represent the people better, then so be it. But I really would not.
Okay, I want to get.
Fix it. We have an excellent.
Yehuda, I want to get Rand. I want to get Rand to respond. Yehuda says no change in the makeup of the committees, but he's open to the idea of a public hearing, such as we have for Supreme Court justices in the U.S. Your response?
First of all, there's one thing that I think that everyone should want to have a change there, and that is the Bar Association. Two people from the Bar Association. We've had some troubles with that in the past, not just the recent one, but also the one before that. FNV was also a little bit problematic for the committee. For those who are not aware, people are accusing FNV and now Avi Chimi of maybe, allegedly, I'm not an expert, I don't know what happened, but maybe some benefits to people who wanted to be judges. I'm not sure that's the best way to nominate judges. I'm going to put that aside. What I'm really struggling to understand is if the judges are completely objective, then I would not mind how they're being nominated. But the thing is that if you're asking for judicial activism, then of course the political orientation of the judge matters. So right now it's not that they're not politicized. They are only to one certain area. And I think that that's not a representation of the public.
But I'm asking you to get into the specifics.
Separation of powers and the independence of the courts. The independence of the courts comes after the judges are elected. This is just like you have it in America. Of course, sometimes people vote for a president in America because they know he's going to nominate or she's going to nominate a judge, and they want them to be on a certain side. That is the concept of the separation of powers, not when you're nominating it. Now, as for me, I would rather have judges who say, I follow the law, which is not what is happening in Israel because of what Aaron Barak called parshanut tachlitit. So if the judges would say, I'm just following the law, then it wouldn't matter who's nominating the judges. But because the system in Israel is that the judicial system is extremely activist, then of course it matters who's the judge. If it wouldn't matter who's the judge, then people would not care so much about who's nominating the judges.
Okay, gentlemen, I'm going to give you both 30 seconds of response. Yehuda.
I have to respond to this because we're very different in the U.S. In Israel, the judges are appointed for the lower courts as well. The committee does the promotion of judges. The committee also decides on removal of judges. This will be total politicization of the judicial system in Israel, which will be a disaster. We need to find common ground here with trying with the public hearings to adjust things, to make things more, to make the judges less activists. We can find compromise, but I would not change the committee. I think.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to give now Ron 30 seconds to respond.
At the end of the day, again, I think that this is what was said. It was just a proposal. I think that the way the committee is built right now, it's bad. But if people want to say, we will compromise if you'll give us one more person from the opposition, or instead of having two people from the public, give me two other people who are, I don't know, extras. I'm open to hear. I'm not the one who's making the shots. What I'm saying is, as someone who's supporting the reform, I'm open to hear. Come to the table in the parliament, talk about it, say what you suggest. I don't think it's being pushed so fast. I think it's actually a very heated, long debate.
Right.
It's been going on for over 20
I'm sorry,
years.
gentlemen. I'm sorry. I'm sure you'll have further chances. We did see some room for compromise here, but a lot of work to be done in other areas. Yehuda Schaefer, Ran Bar Yeshafat, thank you for joining us this evening.